Google has a problem, and almost nobody is talking about it. For more than 2 decades, one simple habit quietly controlled the internet. Whenever people had a question, they searched. That single habit built billion-dollar companies, created millions of websites, and turned Google into one of the most powerful businesses in history. But something has started to change. Not overnight. Not because Google made a mistake. And not because another search engine suddenly became better. The change is happening because people themselves are behaving differently. Every single day, more people are choosing a completely different way to find answers. It looks like a small shift. But if this continues, it could completely change how websites get traffic, how businesses get discovered, and how the internet has worked for the last 25 years. The surprising part? Most people still haven't noticed it's happening. Think about the last time you wanted an answer. Did you actually open Google first? Or did you ask an AI? Most people don't even notice when they make that choice, because it feels normal. It takes only a few seconds. You ask a question, you get an answer, and you move on. No searching, no opening 10 different websites, no comparing dozens of articles. Just one conversation. At first, it looked like nothing more than a new technology, a faster way to get information. But that's not what's making this moment important. The important part is what people are changing, not what the technology can do. Every single day, without realizing it, millions of people are slowly replacing a habit they've followed for decades. And history has shown something interesting. Whenever human behavior changes, entire industries change with it. Some companies adapt before everyone else. Others don't realize what's happening until it's already too late. Right now, the same kind of shift is happening again. For the first time in decades, people aren't just changing where they search. They're changing whether they search at all. It still feels small, almost invisible. But if this continues, the internet won't work the way it always has. And neither will SEO. For years, Google only had one job: help people search, and became so good at it that nobody even questioned the habit. You had a question, you opened Google. Simple, predictable, almost automatic. Every search, every click, every website, the entire internet was built around that one behavior. But something unusual has started happening. People aren't replacing Google with another search engine. They're replacing the habit itself. Instead of searching, they're asking. Instead of scrolling through pages, they're getting answers instantly. No links, no endless tabs, no comparing 10 different articles. Just one conversation. And that's a much bigger change than most people realize. Because Google doesn't just depend on people using Google. It depends on people choosing to search. The moment that habit begins to disappear, everything built around it starts to change. And that's exactly where the story becomes interesting. For decades, every website followed the same rule. If you wanted visitors, you had to rank on Google. It didn't matter if you were a personal blog, a local business, a news company, an e-commerce store, or even a billion-dollar brand. Everyone was chasing the same thing: search traffic, because that's where people began their journey. Someone had a question. Google showed a list of websites, and those websites competed for attention. Some won, some disappeared, but everyone played the same game. That's why SEO became one of the biggest industries on the internet. Companies invested millions of dollars into it. They hired SEO specialists, content writers, editors, developers. Entire teams were built around one objective: rank higher on Google, publish more content, get more clicks, get more traffic. And for a very long time, that strategy worked. But now, something has changed. Imagine building the world's best restaurant on the busiest road in the city. You spend years improving the food, making the experience better, putting up bigger signs, hiring the best chefs. And then one day, people quietly stop using that road. Not because your restaurant became worse, not because another restaurant was better. They simply found a different route. That's exactly what many websites are starting to experience. The problem isn't always ranking lower. The problem is that fewer people are taking the journey that leads to them. And if that journey continues to disappear, traffic disappears, readers disappear, Customers disappear. Revenue disappears. For years, the biggest question was, how do we rank #1 on Google? Today, a much bigger question is replacing it. What happens when people stop searching altogether? Here's the biggest misunderstanding. People think Google is fighting another search engine, but that's not the real battle. Google has defeated competitors before. Yahoo, Bing, countless others. Yet nothing really changed, because no matter which company people used, the habit stayed exactly the same. People searched, they clicked, they visited websites. That simple habit built the entire internet. Millions of businesses depended on it. Creators depended on it. News websites depended on it. SEO existed because that habit existed. But today, something much bigger is changing. People aren't choosing a different search engine. They're choosing a different way to find information. Instead of searching, they're asking. Think about it. A few years ago, if you wanted to plan a trip, you opened Google, read travel blogs, compared hotel websites, vetted YouTube videos, opened 10 different tabs. Today, many people simply ask AI. One question, one conversation, one complete answer. The same thing is happening with students, programmers, writers, business owners, even everyday shoppers. The internet isn't losing information. It's losing the journey people used to take to find it. And that changes everything. Because Google never depended only on technology. It depended on one habit, the habit of searching. The moment billions of people begin replacing that habit, the entire system starts shifting. Websites receive fewer visitors. Businesses notice less traffic. SEO becomes harder to predict, not because Google suddenly failed, but because human behavior quietly changed. And history has proven something again and again. When human behavior changes, every industry built around that behavior changes with it. That's the real competitor Google never expected. The internet didn't change overnight. It changed, one habit at a time. And today, we're witnessing one of the biggest behavioral shifts since the birth of the modern internet. For decades, the internet rewarded the websites that could win the search. But what happens when people stop searching? If the journey changes, every strategy built around that journey changes too. And that's exactly where SEO finds itself today. Not disappearing, but entering a completely different era. Because the future won't belong to the websites people can find. It will belong to the answers AI chooses to remember. Created by Surabhi Gupta.